So, all right, last item on the agenda, and that is the review of American Beauty.
Our
Though,
third of four fucked up love movies.
yes, the messed up
And
love
so far, I
stories.
think this. I think this is so far. I think this is definitely the worst.
Absolutely, absolutely. For those of you who don't know, American Beauty is a story, is a movie about a telesales operative who becomes delusioned with his existence. Kind of just having a midlife crisis. Uh, uh, what was his name? Lester Burnham. Yes, uh, Lester Burnham, portrayed by Kevin Spacey. And he's kind of going through like this, midlife crisis, and has like this kind of malaise, in the beginning part of the movie. But then, he then experiences this awakening. Um, After going to his daughter's cheer performance, where he then, uh, meets his daughter's friend, which he then soon, he falls in love with immediately. And it's like it's just it's the move. There's all these changes, going on for Lester and for his wife and his daughter, and like pretty much everyone around them. And and
Yeah, it's a lot about like bonds breaking apart, like love bonds breaking apart because everyone's so self-indulgent in the film.
this is true. Every character in this film is afflicted with this kind of a self love. They're totally, they're wholly, they're wholly kind of God, what's the word I'm looking for? They're wholly just invested in themselves, and everything is about themselves. I mean, if it's not apparent, you see it in like the first few minutes of the movie where Lester Burnham is masturbating with him in the shower.
And
And
that's
that's
like that's the best part of his day.
yeah, and that's like the best part of his day. But it also goes to like you know uh, the characters in this movie are so cut off from each other that that they have to self medicate or self love. In the case of Lester Burnham, and so you know. I mean, throughout the movie, there's like these kind of like changes that are happening. I mean, not maybe not for the best, but Lester starts becoming a little bit more assertive because, um, I mean, prior he was just kind of like this milk toast, like pushover kind of guy. His wife is like this ultra, his wife played by Annette Bening, is this kind of very rigid, like tyrannical matriarch figure, and the daughter is like this disaffected youth who, despite being a cheerleader, is like very anti
Cheerless.
cheerleader.
Yeah.
And then you have the friend, and then you have the daughter's friend who becomes like the object of the father's love or obsession. And she's complete, like she kind of plays like the vapid airhead, and who's completely self-indulged in her own like bullshit,
Yeah,
and like her own importance. Kind of, if I have to give an analogy, she'd be a fart sniffer in South Park.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And then there's also the other side characters like like the kind of right wing guy who's a closet homosexual, and his son who who is damaged, and and tries to find beauty even in like ugly things. And I think that it's funny because I just thought of this right now, but it's just kind of like his way of dealing with the abuse that he had suffered at the hands of his ultra white right wing closet homosexual father.
Yeah. There's also like some sort of fascination with the color red. There was like the ultra red roses. There's the red, they had that red door. I don't know. To be honest, and I'm probably I forget what the reasoning is. Like there was some reason why like that was so prominent throughout the film, and I don't really have a reason as to why that's there, but
was it to symbolize like life, or
so there's that's what I forget, like what it does actually symbolize.
Right. Well, because I mean, because blood, because red is a significant color. It's used to. I mean, red was used prominently in even Sixth Sense, and that was used to denote significant things. That kind of like that led to I don't know, life. I don't know. Red is a very significant color in history and in terms of like meaning. Yeah. But I couldn't help for like at least for American Beauty, like this, it being somewhat of a signifier for life. Because the roses, because the roses are the one thing that the wife, Caroline, shows any kind of affection to, and like she raises roses, has like several rose bushes around the house. Rose petals, are I think were the red rose petals were used, I think, also to signify Lester's like kind of reawakening, like the blood kind of flowing again. Yeah, I mean, I have to look back because I'm at least I'm trying not to. I'm trying to review this movie and analyze it more as like what I watched as opposed to like what I've read about it. So
yeah, and though that's kind of like what I had to redo too, because I haven't watched this movie in quite a while, and so I'm seeing it in kind of a new light nowadays, or I get differently than what I saw back then. Because I saw it like not that long after it was like probably when it first came out on video, because there was still VHS back then.
Yeah. Were you kind, and did you rewind?
Of course I did. But yeah, as I said, like all the characters are kind of self-indulgent in their own ways. Like where Lester Burnham, the only thing he's focused on is kind of like reclaiming his, like kind of what he feels is his lost manhood, and it starts with his infatuation with his daughter's friend. Then you have Lester's wife, who she's very like into herself. Like all she cares about is her real estate business. But then you even like the tapes that she's listening to. It's all about like the inner person and how like you're the master of your own domain. Blah
right.
Blah,
so
blah.
Basically, yeah, self-actualization.
Right. You had the daughter who was kind of wanted to kind of be out on her own, and like wanted to be separate from her parents, and kind of find something that would give her life some sort of joy.
Well, I mean, she was saving up for a breast augmentation. So
Okay, you're right. I forgot about that part. Yeah. So once it kind of focusing on like herself.
well, I think because her mother was so hypercritical of her appearance, I think it then kind of manifested into that desire into wanting to get a breast augmentation, which is kind of funny because the actress who plays her had a I mean you get to see him, but she had a pretty decent set on her.
Kind of some pepperoni nipples, but that but yeah, it's not my favorite. Then you have.
Oh, I mean, in terms of the size, I mean,
Oh yeah, no, the size is great.
Yeah, nipples are are more of a personal preference, so there's some more subjective. So yeah, but I was just commenting more on the size.
Oh, okay, I'll give you that. The size is there.
Right.
The let's see. Then there's Ricky Fitz, who's the next door neighbor who becomes the love interest of the Burnham daughter,
Jane.
Yeah, Jane. I keep forgetting her name. Jane Burnham.
It's so funny because she's it's funny because she's she's made out to be like this plain Jane, and so yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, now that all right. Yeah, and then you have Ricky Fitz, who is kind of trying to keep up an appearance for kind of appearance's sake to make himself like look like this decent, respectable person.
So you can say you could say that he's trying to fit into a mold.
Right, but like in reality, he's more of kind of interested in like not being ordinary, and kind of lives a very unordinary life. He's kind of like he sells.
Right, there's a duality to him because like he has like this really strict authoritarian father, but yet he sells weed. At a time when weed was illegal.
Yeah.
And so.
And then you have like Ricky Fitz's dad, the Colonel, who is just pretty much like hates his son. He doesn't like. He's kind of like the cartoonishy like right wing villain,
right?
Who is. I don't know if he physically beats his wife, but definitely is a very emotionally abusive, and based off of the ending of the movie, is probably very like kind of neglectful,
right,
and very hurtful to his wife, who you never really hear talk a lot in the film. Like I think she has like a few lines.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, she's a lot of the time she just seems to be like checked out and like just like kind of like spaced out. And then, even like when Ricky brings Jane and introduces her, she's like kind of in like this daze. And then it's not until like Ricky puts his hand on his mom's shoulders like, "Hey, mom," and then she like kind of like snaps out of it.
Which I will also, which I kind of just thought of now too, is kind of also the cartoonish version of what I, what I think the left thinks of like these, right wing wives who are they're silenced and they're
right.
This is, right. I think this is exactly what they think of when.
I mean, yeah, that's what it. I think that's what it is too, and it's like and it's funny because now like I've had like this kind of this new kind of awakening in my own life where I'm starting to starting to embrace some of the more like conservative bits of my upbringing and and starting to think rethink a lot of things. I think that's why I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I did when I first watched it.
Yeah, I didn't. Not that I hated the film,
right?
But I think it spoke to kind of like the wrong side of humanity in a lot of ways, and kind of knowing from when this movie aired, when I saw it to now, and kind of understanding how how my mind has developed and how I see the world now. It was kind of a movie a little bit before its time, because a lot of this it's kind of this kind of showcasing kind of the a real breakdown in family values and love values, and it, like I said, it's the antithesis to a kind of like a romantic kind of love story.
Right, and I think what also,
because to be honest, there's nothing redeeming to me. There's nothing redeeming about the film. None of the characters get any better. I would say, if anything, they get worse by the end of the film.
right, because there's no real redemption that happens in the movie. It's not as though like the husband is bettering himself so that he can fall back in love with his wife. He starts working out or whatever because he overhears the daughter's friend saying like, "Oh, I totally do your dad. If he got in shape a little bit more." And so
I will say this. Okay, if I was gonna find a very slim redeeming factor in the film, is in the case in kind of the interaction between Lester and Angie, Jane's friend, where they start to have their affair in a sense, and when she reveals that, like, oh, I'm actually, I've talked this huge game of how I'm a huge slut, but I'm actually like I've never had sex
she's a
before.
virgin.
And Lester could have been kind of like, well, okay, whatever, because she still said she still wanted it, but he says like, oh shit, and is like, I can't do this, and so he kind of, he's like, he's like, he comforted her. It's like, listen, I can't do this, and it has nothing to do with you, but like, it was almost like he finally like gained some morality in a sense, and and then they end up having this kind of very kind of close conversation afterwards, and
right. The conversation that they have is almost paternal, like the way like he like makes her a sandwich, and like it's kind of very and it's kind of and shows concern for her. It's but again, it's focused on the wrong person.
Right, like I said, it's like I said, it was like, it's very, very slim in as far as like a redeeming quality of the film for Lester, but it's really dark. Like I said, I don't like movies where the characters don't really grow.
Right. Because because there really isn't redemption going on film. Because like the wife after because she starts having an affair with somebody, and she gets caught by Lester, the husband, and and then she kind of spirals. And then she then resolves to kill him, and she's like on her way to go kill him, but
victim.
Right, yeah, she's and then she's hell bent on killing him, and like the daughter, she breaks away from her from Angela, the kind of self-absorbed airhead who's so afraid to be ordinary that she has to lie about her promiscuity, and and keep Jane around to bolster her ego.
Right.
But then Ricky Fitz comes and and asked her, oh, if I asked you to run away with me, would you? And then she still does it, but not but she's running away, not dealing with like the crap that's happening with her own family. She's just running away from it, as opposed
Right.
to as opposed to like making things right and say, hey, going to her parents and like, hey, I need to get out of here, not because I don't love you, but I need to get away, away from me, or some bullshit like that. Yeah, but
I was gonna bring you back to talking about Claire, because obviously, we see her where she has the she wants to kill Lester because well, hilarious that scene at the drive-through.
yeah,
But do you think that at the end where she kind of loses it, do you think that was more because she she feels like I wasn't the one that was able to kill him, and so she's like, I didn't get to take back some power from him? Or do you think it was because she actually realized that, oh, I've kind of like, I've not only have I lost the affair that I was in with this person that other person that I quote unquote cared about, but now I don't even have my husband anymore. Do you which would you kind of based off of like what we've been talking about, what do you
right.
think?
I think it was shame. I think she was feeling giant quantities of shame because the shot is like she runs into her bedroom, and like she looks at the gun in her purse, and then she immediately hides the purse uh, within the hamper, and then in the closet, and then when she turns around, like she sees all of Lester's clothing, and I think she's then after the shame, she's hit with like the massive amount of guilt.
Do you think that might be like also a slim redeeming quality, where in a sense like she finally like
Uh,
realized? I mean, we obviously it's 2 seconds of it, but
right.
because obviously we don't get a American Beauty 2 where like it's kind of
Right.
the after effects of like Lester's death that
Right.
changed
Right.
everybody.
Right. Perhaps I again it's like micro thin redemption, but and I'm really hard pressed. I don't know if I'd be able to call it a redemption, um, but something like it, because the shame leading to guilt could because redemption would mean would I mean, for me, redemption would have to involve some sort of reversal, or some sort of atonement. But I mean,
Right.
since Lester
None of that
died,
happened.
yeah, it can't happen.
I think had it maybe, let's say Lester doesn't die,
Uh
okay?
huh.
I think there may have been a slight chance of redemption for all of those characters in some sense.
Hmm.
But with Lester dying, obviously we don't get to see any of that, and because in a lot of ways, except for a few characters, they kind of get called on their kind of in some way get called out for their behavior. Like the Angie gets called out for being an ordinary kind of bitch,
Hmm.
in a sense, which she was. Basic bitch. Then you have Lester had called out Claire on her her flaws. Um, Claire, not only from Lester, but in her daughter.
It's Caroline, by the way.
Oh, why do I keep calling? I want to keep calling her Claire. It's Caroline. That's right. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Um, you make me look like an idiot for the last like 20 minutes talking about this
Oh,
character.
I didn't catch it the other time.
Okay. Then you had Jane call out Caroline too. It's like, I don't want this Kodak moment with you. You haven't done anything in recent memory to deserve that. Then you
Right.
have Lester, who is maybe like kind of, I think, was realized he wanted to be. I think he did want to be close to Jane again, like because he always goes back to that photo of like a time that was good with all three of them as a
Right.
family,
Uh huh.
and I think and then like same thing. It's like I think there may have been like in these minor slight moments like that there may have been some sort of redemption, but it just we're never gonna see it, and maybe it was just kind of a false hope.
Perhaps, but yeah, it's yeah, it was very yeah. This movie was very nihilistic.
I yeah I'm I think of all the films we've watched, this is probably, I think we should have saved this to last. Now that I think about it, because this is really I was really depressed after watching American Beauty yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this.
I
Yeah,
definitely
because
did not
I
like this
mean,
second
maybe
time
because
around.
maybe it just spoke to to the times, but it's like not all not it's like not all suburban life is like that. It's like not all families are screwed up. Not not all fathers are tyrannical like Colonel Fitz. Um, not all not and but then again not all fathers are as pathetic as Lester. Not all mothers are as controlling as Caroline, and not all wives are like abused like Mrs. Fitz. Um,
I think it was playing off of the extremes of a lot of those like stereotypes.
right, but I think, I think those even those stereotypes, they were never grounded in reality. They were like there's like these projections. I mean, not to say that not to say that nobody ever had like a screwed up life or screwed up family, but it was like the most extreme examples of
Right.
of the two sides, and I think it's again this this isn't this movie doesn't have to represent everybody, but I think it was just it took it didn't offer any hope because I mean Lester died, the daughter still runs away, the wife maybe tried for the murder of her husband. Um,
True.
so yeah, there's no hope in this movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Definitely. American Beauty. Not a very cheery film.
just thinking about it, maybe we should also included La La Land, but
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I hadn't seen it, but yeah, we maybe should have included it.
anyway. But yeah, well, what's done is done, and so all right, let's wrap this up. American Beauty. What do you give it? What, out of 5? What do you give it, Rom?
Well, I will give the acting is actually pretty damn good in the film, I think. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a kind of a redeeming quality. Story wise, it's man, it's really. I'm gonna give it 2.5.
Okay, 2.5.
Yeah, because like I said, I don't like the story, but I think the acting on pretty much every actor in the film is, I think, very well done,
Mm-hmm.
and the cinematography was, I think, pretty decent too.
Right. Uh, yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I same as you. I'd give it 2.5. I mean, for the reasons that you cited.
Yeah. Now, had you asked me 20 years ago, I would have given it maybe like a 4 stars because I actually really liked it back then. But I grew up.
Right. What's that? What's that? Is it in Acts? The verse that Paul gives, like when I was a child, I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish things away.
That wasn't Acts, but it was one of his epistles where he talks about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you have it. The scores 2.5. 2.5 to 2.5.